Ladies and gents, what's chillin'? It's Howland, and you know the deal. We are back with another video. This one is special. We're going to be ranking my video game tier list, and it's going to be updated for 2023, or I guess as of 2024. And we're going to try and make this shorter. If you want to watch the original that I did over a year ago or so, you can check that out where I go over most of the games in detail. But this time we're just putting some updates to it. And I've also changed the format around. So without spoiling things, basically we've got a backlog that we'll talk about. We've got an everything else tier. We've got our rank 50 through 27. And then we've got the final top tier being my top 26 games, 26 through 1. And that's just a number that means a lot to me. It's a special number, so I had it listed as that. And I feel like this is a lot more easy to think about when comparing all these games across all these years, because when I was trying to go back in and go, okay, well, does Mario Kart Double Dash, is that really considered A plus tier when you compare it to a latest Souls game and the 3 playthroughs I've done on that? Or how does a Batman Arkham game stack compared to the latest Temple Run on the iOS, right? It's really hard to fucking compare these things. So I decided that for my simple sake, we're going to be going over a few tiers. I'll explain them as we go. And you can see a little bit of the list here. This is a little bit of what you're going to see on it as far as my catalog of games. And then right now, we're just going to go ahead and hop into the backlog. So the backlog, pretty self-explanatory. These are games that I haven't played, that I'm currently playing, or that I've got plans to play. And to go over every one of them, or at least some of them pretty quickly, Hi-Fi Rush, awesome sauce kind of game. 10 hours, short, sweet. I'm excited to see what this kind of sound or music focused game is going to be, and how the level design and the bosses and the enemies and just the gameplay in general is going to feel. But I expect to have a good time overall just because of the lighter colors and the anime vibes. Bolt Gun, Warhammer Bolt Gun. This is my first Warhammer game. I saw some guy review his underrated games at 23, and this was one of them, and it actually caught my attention. I really like the Borderlands art style, but a little bit more retro arcadey, and so I'm excited to try out this game. Quick, 10 short hours, a single-player experience. We're going to go ahead and touch on Prince of Persia and Hollow Knight. These are two 2D side-scrollers games that I'm going to be checking out after I beat or get through more of Blasphemous 2. If I really liked Blasphemous 2 or I enjoyed it enough, I will definitely be playing Prince of Persia and Hollow Knight, especially Hollow Knight for the bosses and the Prince of Persia for the gameplay. But just need to keep waiting and reviewing what Blasphemous 2 has to offer. And then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, a lot of people saying that's going to be Game of the Year for 2024. Who knows? What I know is that I still need to get through 7 Remake, and I'm definitely going to be playing this in February, so that's one of my first goals. Next up, you got the Yakuza series. So Yakuza 0 and then Like a Dragon, Ishin. To me, I've never played the Yakuza series, and I'm really excited to be honest. I've heard a lot of wacky, crazy shit things about this game, and that's what makes me love it, and that's what makes me want to play it so much, is because of the randomness and just that it's got that id factor. So I'm super stoked to try this out. I'm going to be playing it definitely in the first couple months here. And yeah, I'm expecting to have a great time. Nioh 2, not necessarily expecting to have a great time with this one, but I am expecting a challenge and definitely a lot of mechanical, tight gameplay, which is what I think Nioh is known for. I love the Team Ninja, studio. I love their games like Stranger Paradise and some others. Just the parry-centered combat and the fast-paced, tight gameplay. That's what I'm looking for, is that tight, sweet-ass gameplay. And Nioh 2 is, if you're going to play any of the Niohs, you play Nioh 2. I've heard this game is hard as, and so I'm trying to test it out. I'm trying to test my limits, see how far I can go with it. And yeah, I'm really going to also play it around March so that I can lead right into Rise of the Ronin. So you can kind of see here, we've got some casual games, just getting through, enjoying ourselves, and then bam, slap dab in March, we're getting slaughtered with these two. So I'm expecting Rise of the Ronin to be another fantastic game this year. We'll try it out. Definitely going to be a fun March. And then the last one kind of in April is Dragon's Dogma and Dragon's Dogma 2. But this is definitely my go-to game if I don't play Dragon's Dogma 1. And then the rest, I mean, a quick touch on Black Myth Wukong, Souls-like coming out later this year, Definitely want to check that one out. Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, I just need to get back into it. I played the first few hours, wasn't completely drawn in, but I know I can be if I get invested in the world and everything else. So definitely want to give that another shot at some point this year. Final or Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising. This is a fighting game. Now I love fighting games. I've always been casual with them, but as we'll talk about later on, they've become a staple for me, and so I really want to branch out and see what the different kinds of fighting games can offer. I've never played the Grand Blue Fantasy series, so I like the anime style to it, the art style, and we'll see if I enjoy the, I guess, less in-depth mechanics of it and the easier transition. We'll see, but I'm definitely going to try and play this year. And then God of War Ragnarok. Now, this is only once I beat the original God of War 2018. Once that happens, then I'm definitely going to be trying Ragnarok and doing both of these. So that's the backlog. Also, that's not seen up here, games in 2025. So Monster Hunter Wilds is not up here, but I'm definitely going to be playing that. And then GTA 6. You got to be smoking crack if you're not playing that game in 2025. Let's be honest. So those two games, also games that I'm currently playing or that are ongoing, Mortal Kombat 1 and Monster Hunter Rise. These are games that are staples for me. I play them all the time. There's not necessarily a beginning and end. There's not a playthrough in mine. You just play them because they have infinite in-game and just constant sessions that you can play. So I just am going to be playing those throughout the year, among some other games. Like, I just haven't listed everything in this backlog. It's just an idea, a good sample, if you will. Now, getting into the everything else category. So, right up there we go. Without spoiling everything else is, I guess I'll preface it with this. I somewhat ordered these, and as you can see, we've got sort of like the iOS games with a little bit of one-off random ones in between. You've got some GameCube games, some random PC games, some older classics. You've got another crazy random set of games, and then you got a little bit of Mario, you got some RPGs, then you kind of go up and up and up, and you see more Call of Duties and FPS games, and then some of the more games that I'm really interested in talking about, but they're not super ordered, right? Like Street Fighter 6 is not above Smash Bros. Ultimate because of specific details and all that. It's just a general idea. The main point of the everything else category is, one, I wanted to include everything that I have played, or at least remember playing, whether I played it for 2 hours or 50 hours. And then also, I feel like it's worth acknowledging that I did invest some time, money, and energy into playing these games. Whether or not they were the best thing ever, that's up for debate. But I at least want to say that this is my style. You can kind of get a glimpse of like some of the games that I played growing up, that I'm currently playing, and that I've taken interest to. And that's what these serve as. The only ones that I'm going to mention are, let's see. Oh yeah, Counter-Strike. Just so I can dunk on that game real quick. It's complete ass. I don't like that style of game. I know a lot of people do, but for me, Counter-Strike is just I don't like getting one-tapped. I really don't. I like longer time to kills. That's why I like more jetpack CODs than the boots on the ground. And so Counter-Strike is just, I know it's a lot of skill shots. There's a lot of just hardcore competition, and it's a timeless game. It's just not for me. That's just plain and simple. And League of Legends, I wanted to put above that because I did play League of Legends for a week and I enjoyed it. Rainbow Six Siege, take what I said about Counter-Strike, but don't say it's an actually good game. Just basically the bullshit mechanics of whoever's L-triggering around the corner or holding their position first wins. And I'm just not a fan of that style of game. Also, the reliance on teammates in these games. I'm a fighting game player through and through at this point. I really am. It took me a while to convince myself of it, but I am. I can't rely on shitters every day. So that's why this game is low too. And then Demon's Souls, that's my lowest rated Souls game to note. It's also my only unfinished one. We'll talk about it, but yeah, I've put in 3 hours on Demon's Souls. In my opinion, it's the worst. Yes, give it credit for being the start of the Soulsborne genre and paving the way for everything else, but a spade's a spade. A spade's a spade. Fuck that bridge to Tower Knight. That's what really cost me the entire run. The dragon that breathes fire multiple times. All the enemies that restrict you from doing what you want to do. And The leaf system, the finite healing system, just a lot of tough mechanics and experiences that I had to get through for those first 3 hours, and I'm not willing to do it. I wasn't willing to. If I get super bored and I'm a completionist and I'm like, all right, I've never finished this game. This is the only one I haven't. Then maybe I'll go back, but not really excited to do it. Kanaga Usagi. This was a demo game that's got like a cute anime girl aesthetic, and I saw it off of Ong Ball's YouTube channel. He called it Sekiro DLC, which is what made me check it out. And he wasn't really capping. I mean, it is kind of like Sekiro DLC. It's almost identical mechanics with the deflex system and all the different perilous attacks and everything else. But it was a demo. I only played it for 45 minutes, beat the 6 bosses, however many there were, and that's all it was. So that's why it's this low. I still thought it was fine gameplay-wise. Yu-Gi-Oh! I think I have to shout that one out. I love the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise, the series, the entity, and the show, everything involved with Yu-Gi-Oh! But the game was hot ass. It was wet butt cheeks. This game, turn-based. You only play it because you like Yu-Gi-Oh! Not because you like the game. Moving on, lowest rated COD, World War II. I feel like we also need to slam dunk this one into the trash can. It was the most limited movement. I felt so slow. The only good thing about it was the rank play because it was competitive. But the maps, the overall art style, the color aesthetic, it was so bland, so samey with all the gray, and I hated the gunplay. Actually, the gunplay wasn't bad, like PPSH, and even the snipers were good, but man, outside of rank play, playing pubs, just the movement, the restrictive, everything I didn't like about this game, the boots on the ground, just not fun. And then moving through all these, 18-wheeler. I think it says a lot that we have a GameCube 18-wheeler, American All-Star, something like that, above a lot of these games. Now, again, it's not set placement, but it is generally higher than I would say most of these iOS games. And to touch on the iOS real quick, all of these great experiences when you're in middle school and you're riding the bus to school with everyone. But nowadays, I don't touch a game on my phone. I'm not 12 years old. I don't care for it, and I don't want that mindless fun anymore. So they just fall flat. They just do. And then moving up the list, anything else in this category? Wild Hearts, a Monster Hunter like that fell a little bit flat. Kind of just didn't hit the right spot. Lack of content, horrible PC performance. The first weekend we played it was actually kind of fun through the PC problems because the monsters were very unique, and some of the cockery building and like the mobile tents and the way you could traverse the map and all that was fun, but yeah, definitely dropped it. And then AOT, Swammy's fan game. Shout out to Swammy. Man made a classic on Discord, only downloadable through some Discord page on PC, and it was basically just one night that we played, Aiden and I, and we just zoomed around, zipped around in the ODM gear. I was cranking out the Attack on Titan soundtrack while just flying around the city and having a blast. The movement is actually elite with the ODM gear. It felt like he really nailed how you should be feeling when you're using it. And there was a lot of tech and a lot of nuance and just, I guess, elitism to it. And that's what I liked about it, but that's all it was. If they had a PvP aspect to this game and really fleshed it out, it could be actually incredible. But right now, that's where it stands. And then the lowest of the Smash games, Ultimate, it goes down here to kind of flesh out all the Ultimate game or all the Smash games. I grew up with Smash. That was probably my first fighting game genre or fighting game series. And yeah, it's fun. It's the best when you're playing with friends and having spend the nights and sleepovers where everyone's just having fun. But Smash Ultimate came out when I was way older. I wasn't necessarily the target audience, and I wasn't as interested, and my passion and all that wasn't as insane as it was when I was a kid. And same thing with our friends. So when you don't have the passion for it as much, and so do your friends, and you're moved on to other things, it's just going to fall lower. I know it's probably objectively the best of them because of all the features and the characters and the maps and everything, but for personal experience, I played it the least. Street Fighter 6, my only Capcom fighting game. I tried it out last year. Watching this game is phenomenal. It's so beautiful. All the colors, the drive rush with the green, and just the stylized fighting. It's very, very cool to watch. But playing it when I did, I somehow put in, I think, 20 hours, and half of it was probably practice. But it just, I could not adjust to the mechanics and the gameplay and the controls, even with the more modernized settings. So I just can't play it. I just can't. And then we got 007 Nightfire. You got 007 from Russia with Love. Just classic James Bond GameCube games, split screen, playing with your friends, your buddies. Dragon Ball Fighter Z. I played this in college for about a week, and I feel like I need to revisit it. Now that they've done the rollback netcode, they've added a lot of new characters and updates and everything else. The online's probably a lot better, and I now have a huge understanding for the complexity of fighting games, and I've got a lot more interest in them, so maybe I'll go back at some point, but it was okay. It was okay when I first played it. And then Devil May Cry 5, Metal Gear Rising, getting through some of those. Dragon Ball Z, Tenchai, Budokai, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a PS2 game. And I gotta shout out the one session we had, or the couple of sessions. This is what got me into Dragon Ball, to be honest, is playing these fighting games in middle school or like fourth, fifth grade. And I remember staying at our boy Rahul's house, and we had a couple friends, Saul and Miguel, come over. And these guys were so just, how do I put it? They were so motivated in playing this game. They had a stick on their shoulder, a chip on their shoulder, really trying to be the best. And they were fighting each other. I can't remember if it was I remember Miguel pulled some conniving bastard ass move, and then Saul actually chokeholded the man, and he basically strangled him to death. Like, he choked him out, and he actually passed out, and we were all freaking out, and we had to like get Saul off him. I mean, it was that heated, but like, it was actually a funny memory looking back. It was a lot of passion in that game. It really was, and it was ahead of its time. And I'm excited to play. I don't have it down here, but that new Dragon Ball, I can't remember the name that's coming out, but it got announced at the 2023 Game Awards. I'm definitely going to be playing that because it's been a minute since I've done a Dragon Ball fighting game. And then Monster Jam, loved Monster Trucks growing up. GoldenEye, of course. SpongeBob SquarePants, I have to mention the speedruns in this game. I remember playing this for once or twice growing up, and it was fine. I didn't really understand everything, but watching speedruns of this game is actually butt fucking madness. It is so incredible how they break this game and how they're all the glitches and ways that you can just exploit it. So from a content casual perspective, it's actually amazing, but I don't know about playing it. I know the new one. I actually could add that new one down here. I don't know what it's called, but the new one I'd be down to play as well. And then what else we got? AC Armored Core 6, FromSoft's latest entry. A bit of a letdown in my opinion, only because I haven't really experienced it fully. I've done the first 2-3 hours, first couple missions and bosses, but I haven't gotten to Baltius, haven't gotten to a couple of the big plot points and themes and boss fights. So once I get to those and I actually play through the rest of the game, maybe I'll change my opinion, and I actually will. I just think the mission-based structure, the mecha vibe, and everything else, I just wasn't getting around to. But we'll try it out at some point. BioShock, I mean, look, my background's BioShock, right? So I feel like that's got to at least deserve some sort of praise, because I think that the underground city of Rapture is one of the coolest concepts ever. But I did not, I mean, I didn't not enjoy it. We played one night on a random Saturday at like 12 at midnight, and it was fun. We spawned in the ocean, rode the chamber down the city, had the introduction, went through a couple of the levels, did a couple of the gear puzzles and a couple of boss fights and all that. It's just more fun to watch this game, watch the speed runs of it, and soak up the vibe and the aesthetic than it is to actually play gameplay wise. And so that's why it's not in my top 50. And you can see with the top 50, it's leaking over, but I'll try and keep it still so we're not going any higher than that. Mario Kart Wii, that's the lowest Mario Kart, and it's same reason for Smash. It's just my least played. didn't really get into the Wii version of Mario Kart as much as I did the GameCube, and it also probably had the least amount of like content and just classic maps and everything else. Mario Kart 8 right above it. Same not same story, but just came out way later in life. Friends weren't as invested. I wasn't as invested. Not necessarily target age, and yeah, it probably is the best of all the games. It's got the most features, most maps, all the classics, but it just it doesn't have a core memory for me, and that's why it's not that high because I have a different one above that. Super Monkey Ball, speed runs, enough said. Just watching someone with his like hand cam do a 20-second level where he just hits one random ass angle and drops the ball right in the exact hole that he needs to or past the finish line. It actually makes your jaw drop, but and even playing it was fun growing up. Halo Infinite, all these COD MW3 this year, and then IW. I think these were underrated games, but I also think they're mediocre. I really do. IW was only good for the zombies. I thought the zombies was amazing. And then also it was jetpacks, so I like that more than boots on the ground. MW3, only reason why I got back on this one, because I skipped Vanguard and MW2 when those two came out, but I got back on because it brought back the gunfight mode, which was one of my favorite modes from the 2019 Modern Warfare, and played 3 hours of that with Aiden, and it was fun. I mean, when you hop on COD, and it's COD because the first actual lobby you're in, the guys in game chat.
What up, guys? You circumcised?
Classic.
No.
It's asking if you're circumcised, boys. That's how you know you're in for a great night. But that's all this is. I'm not as interested in FPS and just this bland, like repetitive hop in lobbies, play the same 4v4, 2v2s, whatever. It's not my style of game anymore. At one point it was, but yeah. And then Monster Hunter World, to kind of get through these a little bit more quicker. Monster Hunter World, Iceborne. We'll talk about Rise. We will. But I started with Rise. And going from Rise to Iceborne, I've played about 5 hours of Iceborne or World. It's a complete 180. And not even 180, it's just a backtrack. Everything except for the art style and performance, which you could even argue the more anime-ish and more, I guess, bright and experimental art style of Rise I prefer than the realism of Iceborne. But Rise just shines way above World in my opinion in terms of gameplay and everything else. You got the wire bugs, you got the silk bind, the switch skills, all the new additions to each weapon, and all the different gameplay elements and systems. It's just far, far superior in my opinion from a gameplay perspective, and even just the monsters and everything. I don't know. I like Rise a lot. We're gonna skip through a couple of these. Dimesia was my first Souls-like game, and just didn't play more than the first boss, Paso Dur. I thought it was fine. I enjoyed actually the combat and the new systems, the new gameplay mechanics, but needed to get through it. Fallen Order. Only reason why it's this low, just like a lot of these games, is they were incomplete. BioShock, these games, I only put in 3-4 hours. And Fallen Order, to me, had huge issues, like the poncho, and also the fact that there was no fast travel. So I got lost on one of the planets where Ogda was, and I was lost for like an hour and a half. I couldn't find my way back to Manus to save my goddamn life. And after a couple of hours of that, I was just like, yeah, it's not worth it. It's not. And then NHL hits. Look, this game is this high up for one thing only. You get to beat the absolute shit out of your friends no matter when the game's happening. So like the game loads or the match loads, you can just immediately take off the gloves. Just go right to the action. And that's what I love about NHL hits is you really can get down and dirty. And it was that classic GameCube fight. Batman Arkham games. The only reason why they're not in my top 50, because I didn't actually play them. I played City the first 6 or 7 hours in college, but I only watched them. I watched the Rad Brad gameplay walkthrough, and I watched like all of his videos for every game. And in a way, I did experience them through him, but I didn't personally play them. so that's why they're this low. And I think City probably has the best story and the best rogues and enemies and villains. Knight probably has the best gameplay, best visuals, everything else, and then Origins strictly above that for the Deathstroke final boss fight. Not the one in the tank. Not the one in the tank. Everyone knows which one I'm talking about. And then Blasphemous 2, that's the 2D side scroller, kind of Souls vibes from a lore perspective. That's the game that I'm playing right now. First couple of hours in, I enjoy it. I like I'm not used to this genre of game. And so the Metroidvania of unlocking a new skill, ability, going back to a level you couldn't access, it's exciting. It makes your brain think, but I also don't want that every 5 seconds and constantly having to loop back and figure out what I'm missing. So if I can get through it and I really find an addiction for this style of game, I'm definitely gonna be playing the others that are in the backlog. But we gotta get through it first, and that's why it's not higher either, because I just haven't played enough. Remnant 2, great game, solid, but just not making the top 50. And then here, this line, for the most part, you're going to see Halos and CODs. So Halo 2, first Halo we got introduced to with our cousins, so it needs recommendation for that. COD 4, just it was before my time. I went back and played it after Infinite Warfare Remastered came out, and so finding nade spots and playing GBs and 3v3s with friends, that was fun, but I didn't grow up on it. This wasn't my COD. Same thing with World at War, except World at War is all about the zombies. I mean, the zombies will actually make you shit your pants. How scary this game is. The Verrucht lobby music. Are you kidding me? Nightmare fuel. And then even Durice, it has some classic zombies maps, just some absolute bangers, and that's why it's a little bit higher than 4 for me. And also 4 just so restrictive on the movement. It's all about power positions and one bursting, and I don't know. Modern Warfare 2, same kind of thing. I didn't grow up with MW2. I know that it's one of the best CODs. The multiplayer was unhinged. The lobbies, the shit talk, the one-man army, and the different ways that you can just break the lobbies with like spawn traps and glitches and everything else. Like it was so much fun, but it was ahead of my time. And then Halo 3, same thing as MW2, just the Halo version. I know it's probably the best Halo out there. The BR is the best. The balancing and the competitive nature of it is the best of all the Halos, all the maps, the classics. But I didn't grow up on Halo 3. And that's why it's there. And then iPad Zombies, it's up here because this was really what got us started into zombies. Black Ops, it's there for a couple of core memories. I didn't grow up on Black Ops, but doing the church spend the nights on the big plasma screens with like 30 people running Kino, and then every time you lost, you just switch controllers and have everyone watch you. That was a ton of fun. The split screen Nuketown matches. I mean, this has a bunch of classics from zombies maps to multiplayer. You still see them bringing them back in the new CODs, and that says a lot, but didn't grow up on it. Plain and simple. And the last one's Modern Warfare. I actually played this a decent amount in college. I really liked the gunfight mode. And it was my first and only Call of Duty campaign, which was actually one of the better ones. And then Cold War, just not my favorite Black Ops. It's fine. You could say Black Ops 1 is above it, actually. But I think I played more Cold War. And that's why I played more competitively, and it was at its prime. And then the last one's Fall. Finishing out the everything else category. We have got Lords of the Fallen, a recent Souls-like. I'm 5 hours in. The reason why I can't rank it higher is because it's just incomplete, and I only have one session on it with Aiden, but that session was actually amazing. It was incredible. It's the first time we've tried like a naked fists-only run, and little did we know that it was going to lend itself so well to that strategy, because to my knowledge, this is the only Souls game that lets kick damage and all that actually work. So you can full blown, like, not RKO, what's the move? You can like flying drop kick, send someone launched, just rip their wig off with your feet and your toes, and adding that with the naked, I don't know if it's Wretch or the Unfortunate, whatever the starting class is that we choose, you get a broken bucket that does basically no damage. And that unique experience that I haven't gotten in the other Souls playthroughs of going through the first level And co-op, that's a big other feature too that makes it a lot more fun game, and why it's probably going to end up being in my top 50 is the co-op. But playing with Aiden, going through the beginning levels, struggling on a lot of just basic bitch enemies because of our limitations and our self-imposed restrictions, an absolute blast. And then the first boss took us like 3-4 hours, and it was kind of a masterpiece of a fight. Oh, that was close. Is that the heel of the century? Is that the heel of the century? Beat her fucking ass!
Alright, this is it. This is it for sure. I don't even need to knock on wood. I'm fucking ending her goddamn life right now!
I'm going for a kick. I'm going to rear house kick her so goddamn hard.
Oh my god.
Get that R2
Oh
in
my
there.
god.
This is it. This
Drop
is...
kick? Only drop kick.
Only drop
I
kicks.
swear
Only
to God,
drop
if
kicks.
you kill her with the fucking punch, I'm gonna
One more!
kill you.
Together. We both gotta hit her. Get over here. We're gonna go for it together. We're gonna run her down.
Alright.
Alright, get over here in this corner. We're gonna... Alright, go to the other side. We're gonna run her down over here. We're gonna full sprint
What's
this.
the objective here?
We're gonna full sprint this. Get ready.
What is the
And then we had just so many different minute, crazy strategies of like, all right, you flying drop kick her this time, it'll stagger her into this, and then that'll give me just enough time to do my charged R2 bucket, and we'll stagger her and do a visceral, and just like playing through co-op, all the funny strategies of just gang banging this bitch with fists and buckets and feet. It really was a fun time. So I expect to enjoy it a lot more. Just need to keep playing it. Rounding out our everything else tier, Dark Souls 2. No way! Are you serious? And I'm dead. Alright, I'm getting my potatoes. I can't wait around anymore for this stupid bullshit. Really? That's a good song. Really good song right now.
Jesus,
Bless
take
the
the
Lord,
wheel.
oh my soul.
Oh, my soul. Blessed his holy name. Now isn't that peaceful?
Oh my, nice. And preface here, I have not finished it. I've played 50 hours on this game. I've probably played more of this game than I have any of these others from a time perspective. And I'm on the Old Iron King, the second DLC. Just beat Fume Night. And this game, out of all the games, not just the Soulsborne games, out of every single game, this one disrespects the player the most. It disrespects your time, your feelings, your money, your sanity, right? Your lifespan. It disrespects everything about the player. It is the ultimate fuck you game. And I'm a masochist at heart. I really am. That's what I've discovered about myself playing these Souls games. So it's so tough. It's so tough to rank this game because it's mainly lows. It's extreme lows. But part of that's the charm with it is what game makes you suffer more. I'm trying to think of a game that's made me actually suffer more, and it's almost impossible to think of one. Maybe, I mean, Dark Souls 1, of course, is like right above it, but like I think Dark Souls 2 is the most enraging, aggravating, makes you want to order 3 controllers on Amazon and human spear a toddler kind of game, and that is why, for my ultimate slight and disrespect back to Dark Souls 2, it's the last cut on the everything else tier. It didn't make the top 50. It's right outside. And that's like my way of giving it back shots back. Because that's all this game does is it's 3 hours of running back to the boss, getting gangbanged, getting body blocked, getting just obliterated on every single front. And then the boss fights, complete dog shit. This game The one word to describe this game is dog shit. It is so fucking bad, but it's also so good. And part of what makes it good, one, Fume Knight, he's the Artorias of this game, and also just the lore implications, how deep the lore goes. It's probably one of the most lore heavy focused games outside of Elden Ring. Like, I think it's probably my favorite. And so all the characters and the story, a little bit of the world design and the semi-open nature of it, and the different paths you can take, the build strategies, the speedrun strategies, the ways that you can break this game and approach it, content, everything else. Like, it does go a long way with that. But as an experience, like actually playing this game, yeah, that's why it's not making the top 50. And that's where we're gonna land. It won't change. It really won't. It may even fall lower. We'll see. We'll see next year. But yeah, we're gonna have a whole Soulsborne game and Soulsborne boss tier list. So expect more discussion about this one. About this one for sure. Breaking in to the top 50. And I just realized I have completely spoiled my rankings, but you can see them. And if you want the explanations, I'm going to give them to you. Now, a quick note about these two, the S and the SS tier. They are ranked, these are my top 50 games, and they are right to left in order. So Halo Reach is actually ranked 50. Injustice 2 is actually ranked 27. Halo Master Chief is actually ranked 26. And Elden Ring is my number 1. Spoiler alert. But I would definitely want to talk about them, so stick around because we've got some spice. And going off with 50, Halo Reach, similar to Black Ops 1, just the memories, the specific nights that, you know, you're sleeping over at a friend's house and you're playing just random multiplayer together, having fun, some great maps, and the way that they introduced like the specialist or whatever, the abilities, I thought was fun. Obviously the BR, like the core guns were just trash compared to even Halo 4, which, speaking of which, right above that, Halo 4, it's higher than a lot of the Halos for me because of the fact that it was kind of my first Halo. It was just like Black Ops 2, where, yes, there were games before it, Halos before it, but when I actually got it myself, played it myself, this was my first game, my first Halo. And so I just remember playing 2v2s with Barrett, going against Rahul and Alex on Haven, which is just a god tier map. Such a fun and just visually pleasing and even great structure and map layout. And the BR actually was a lot of fun. The 4-round burst BR. I think Halo 3 has the best, but it's up there. And yeah, I mean, I just think about it because of the personal experience being probably my second most played Halo, and the one that I really started on. So that's why it's there. Forza Horizon 2, this was back in high school. It was when I had a huge interest in cars and racing. You know, I was big into the Fast and Furious franchise. I was playing a bunch of other racing games and watching Top Gear and all that. And so this was just the peak of all that. And Forza Horizon 2 was a ton of fun. Open world of it, all the different cars. You know, getting on with Zach and Alex for that 1 or 2 month span where we were just finding different jump spots and spots to go super fast or hit a crazy hill and launch ourselves. And then you talk about the airport, right? The drag racing, fucking each other over at the very off rip. It was just a lot of fun going through that game. And yeah, I don't really have any complaints about it. It's just I just don't want to drive. I have my own car that I drive. I don't want to drive anything else right now, or at least simulate it. It's not the same anymore. And then we got a slew of Mario games, Mario sports games. You got Super Mario, Superstar Baseball. You got Mario Golf, Toadstool Tour, and then Mario Party 7. I think in this order. Superstar Baseball, I loved it as a kid, playing it with Max, and it was back when we were big into baseball too. And then even in college, when it had a little bit of a resurgence, this game made big waves. It splashed hard. And there was a meta at the beginning where I was just dominating. My strat was leaping bases. Basically, I would bunt or do a simple hit. And the moment that I got someone on base, the moment someone was on base, I got an immediate run. Because all I would do is the next batter up, when they'd pitch, I'd immediately try and steal base, and then we'd play like a mind game of back and forth, where I would run my character back and forth, and then they'd try and get me out, and then every single time without fail, I'd get to the next base. And within the same turn, I could get all 3 bases. Because then, like, they would stop and they'd think that, all right, let's go to the next pitch. Nah, no, I'm stealing that shit again. I'm stealing it again in your face, right next to you on the couch. And that meta where, like, all I needed was one bunt or a fake bunt to get one run and just loop them and constantly embarrass them, that was, like, a fucking goated meta. And that was so much fun. But then Ryan ruined the meta by not even entertaining the whole gamble and the mind read, because he was like, all right, well, it's a lot tougher to hit in this game to actually get on base. So let's just, whenever they are on base and they try and get another hit or steal, let's just throw it to the base ahead of them. And so they can't even, if they run all the way through, they're going to get out. And once that meta happened and people started sticking to that strategy, it got really dry. And the only excitement came from like 5th innings when someone had to make a play. But man, when the meta was at its peak, I would put actually baseball above a lot of these. It was so much fun. But because now thinking about where the meta is and how much it played a part of my life, I'm okay with putting it here. And then golf, Toadstool Tour. This one, it deserves to be up here. You never have a bad session of golf, Mario Golf. You always play it at the very end of the night when everyone's about to fall asleep. It's 4 a.m. and you're just chilling on the couch with the boys. You got a couple of 9 holes laid out and 4 players just passing the control around. You're just goofing off, right? You're talking shit when they pussy out on a putt and just mess it up, shoot a little short, and then you're just giving them hell if they flush one down or they miss their power shot, right? Just good vibes overall. Never a bad time, but very, very lacking in terms of the like actual skill and like depth of the game. Mario Party 7, kind of the same thing as golf. Never a bad session. This was my Mario Party. I played 7 and exclusively 7. The mini games, doing the Halloween nights where we were trading candy like stock and crypto, and then we'd go in the living room and play a bunch of Mario Kart or Mario Party. It was a fun time. And yeah, even in college and past college, having friends over and doing a couple of these mini games and just playing through the spaceship map, doing the blaster game and then the bunting or the batting section, like it was really a great time. Then the Call of Duties, to me, these are like the underrated CODs, where I think MW3 got hated on too much. Same thing as AW. AW is a great jetpack COD, probably the most skill gapped jetpack COD from movement wise. I thought some of the maps were incredible. The gunplay felt fun, and it was a big inspiration to play ranked as well. And then MW3, just iconic. The Moabs, the spawn traps, the maps, the gunplay. I think at the time to kill is a little too slow and it's boots on the ground and you're missing that. But I mean, you talk about the what's that mode where you can have like 2v2 kind of S&D modes. I can't remember what they call them, but you had that, which was ahead of its time. And then I don't know if people really hate on survival, but I actually really enjoyed it. Like, yes, it's not going to live up to zombies. Zombies is the peak 3rd mode, but survival was a great alternative for what it was. And playing Resistance, trying to do the lockdown in the house in the middle of the map, everybody knows what I'm talking about. That was one of the best experiences. And then grinding to get to level 50 to unlock like the turrets and the different strategies. And when you hit wave 30, when the juggernauts are dropping down and you're just shitting bricks, like figuring out how you're going to stop them. I mean, this game had that mode had a lot of strategy and skill involved, and just like playing with your boys, like locking down the house. It's great. So I liked MW3, but it was also a little bit ahead of our time too. And then these two are Souls-likes. I think Lies of P objectively is the best Souls-like out there. Just has the most features, most everything, most polish. But the reason why it's not higher, 1, I'm only halfway through the game, and 2, fucking Archbishop Andreas. I don't know what the average time is to get through that boss. I really don't. But it can't be as long as I took. It took me 9 hours and several days, actually several weeks, before I actually got back on and beat that and that staled the game. It soiled my experience. I do think the enemies and the bosses are really uniquely designed and they have an incredible challenge to them. and the mechanics of the game hold up, and they're very unique as well. But I that one boss really, it slowed my roll, and so I need to get back on the game. I'm just dreading the difficulty of it all, which is normally not like me. I want all the challenge, bring on the smoke. But yeah, right now that's why it's there. And then Wolong, another Team Ninja game. I actually really enjoyed this one. We're right on the Lubu boss, basically middle of the game as well, and it's all about the combat to me. It's the deflect, the main mechanic, the deflect, the the combat, the gameplay. That's what shines about this. The bosses, not at all the level design, but definitely the bosses and the gameplay. And I want to beat it at some point too. And then Super Mario Sunshine. This is a personal favorite of mine, and it's in a top 50 games of all time. The fact that it's this high, I think that speaks volumes. I will never forget getting this game Christmas Day and that package when you know it's the GameCube game, the one that you've been asking for, or at least that you knew it was a GameCube game, and that was a special moment. And playing this that day, playing it growing up, trying to learn the different Easter eggs and ways to get through it, it was fun. This is the most, you can't argue, this game is beautiful. You can't argue that. It is actually sexy as hell. The bright colors, the skyboxes, just everything about it screams stunning. And reason why it's actually this high though is because of the speed running. I will forever have Bouncy Boys speed runs in college as a core memory, where I was, junior, senior year of college, ripping the blinker on cooldown and just chilling watching Bouncy Boy speed run this game. It was a sight to behold, really. It was actually mind-blowing watching someone go through a game that you went through as a kid and seeing all of the tech with like how you can manipulate the character, because the controls were jank as hell and like wonky and really tough to control. But watching someone actually master that and abuse it, and then all the different secrets and the glitches and the skips and the stuff that you never actually explored yourself, just it was like a complete mind trip. And so yeah, that resurgence in college, watching. I'm still dog shit at this game. I'll never be able to speedrun it, but watching people, the content on it, it was so phenomenal, and that's why it's this high up. And then Strangers of Paradise, that is a Team Ninja Souls-like, not even Souls-like, just a Final Fantasy game. A lot of memorable things about this one. First kind of Final Fantasy game. I know it's not really the mainline games, but it was my first exposure to Final Fantasy, and played it right after Elden Ring when it came out with Aiden. The co-op is what made this. It really did. All the different times we were getting shanked left and right by mobs, and all the bosses that were just pounding us left and right, just 50 death attempt boss runs, and all the struggle and the different micro strats. I actually loved this game. The campy, over the top story, chaos, and then Jack. You gotta love Jack, sucker punching the queen or the princess in the story mode. All the different bosses and the levels. I think it's objectively not one of the best, or not a good game, but I enjoyed it. I loved the gameplay, the quick, tight, parry-centered, deflect-centered gameplay, and the co-op. So that's why it's this high up above all these others. And we actually beat it, unlike these. And then Injustice, the first Injustice on the list. I love Injustice. It was my favorite fighting game series for forever. And the first game, the reason why it's the lowest is because I was just way past the curve. The only people that played it when I did back in middle school were the people who had 5,000 hours and were going to shit stomp you into a corner and flawless you. So I didn't really play online, but I definitely remember playing that one week or that one night where I did the story mode and on my Cars TV, and just playing that for like the 4 hours that it was. The Injustice story is actually incredible, and all the characters, and just, I don't know, just it was such a fun time. And so the story plus like trying out all the characters and a little bit of online, that to me was enough. Plus I remember going to friends' houses like Obbies and all that, and we would play it against each other, so it had a little bit of staying power. And then the first Borderlands game, not really mainline, but Tales from the Borderlands. I remember watching this on spring break in high school, watching it come out and watching someone play the first couple of story chapters or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I want to play this. And so senior year of high school, I actually did. And I did a replay of it in college too. And it never fails. It really doesn't. I've never played a Tales game or that style of game, a Telltale game, but this was worth it. I loved the story, the characters being not Vaughn. Why am I blanking on this guy's name? But the main character, you're up in this Hyperion massive corporation, just an absolute suit up there in space, and it's just a dream. Like if I could work in space in a massive corporation like that, sign me up, sign me up. And then you talk about that plus the story in general and the characters like that douchebag boss. I can't remember his name, but he was driving that flying car through the desert. Remember that? And all the different ways that like you can choose dialogue options and kind of disrespect characters and talk shit. And then you got Scooter, his final send off, that emotional send off. Just a lot of incredible moments in the story itself and a great time all around. Like, yeah, it's not a really replayable game. It doesn't have a lot of depth or really interaction, but just sitting around, hanging out, playing through it, can't go wrong. Borderlands 3, the weakest. I wouldn't even really call it the weakest, but from a personal experience, I've got to say it is. Like the first month when this came out, nothing topped it, right? Nothing topped this game. Ripping the blinker left and right, just every 5 seconds, huffing and puffing, coughing your lungs out and being out of your mind and exploring every single nook and cranny and 100%ing each level. And when this game first came out too, it was kind of busted, like the drop rates and the RNG. So like there was that Capra whatever boss in Athena's area. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, hopefully. You could farm that guy. He would just spew legendaries out. And then farming Megamind and all of Promethea and the vibe and the art style and the different sets, or not even set pieces, but just the different environments, the millions and billions of guns. And I don't know, the game hit all the right spots in the first month. It was broken. You got all the legendaries you would want. But then they patched it up. They restricted a lot of things, tuned back the gameplay, and it was still fine. I think this game also has like the most content too, just DLCs, bosses, weapons, items, everything. But it didn't hold the same weight that the other Borderlands did. God of War. Now I'm halfway through this one. I really like God of War. I'll never forget the stranger boss fight experience. God damn!
Just healed! He's just full healed!
Dude, he just kicked me all across. Holy shit!
Struck a nerve,
Grab the log!
did I?
Grab the log, Kratos! Yes! 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 Kick his fucking ass! This guy is like beating my back, trying to get me off. Shout out that guy. That guy was he was something. That whole fight was the peak of that experience, and then like the next 3 or 4 hours was just puzzles and that one big dragon fight. So I got annoyed with the puzzles and I got burnt out, but I definitely want to return so I can play Ragnarok. And this game also just has an amazing story and the voice acting. How many times did we say boy afterwards? For months we were just saying that in different playthroughs and all the time that we were on. All right, next up, Spider-Man 2. So this is almost a perfect game. This is Marvel Spider-Man 2, the follow-up to the great, I don't know when the other one came out, but it is almost perfect. The problem that I have is that it's Spider-Man. I don't care too much about Marvel anymore. I never really cared for Spider-Man. And so, yeah, I wasn't too interested in the characters, the side characters, the plot overall. Like, yeah, they made me interested because of the immersion with the controller and just the dialogue and everything else. But if this was Aquaman, if this was the same style of game, but with Aquaman and we're in Atlantis underwater, this is SS tier, probably top 1. But it's not. It's Spider-Man. And also, I thought after the Sandman fight at the beginning, the next few hours of like just a slice of life, exploring school and Harry and all that were pretty lame. It was pretty slow, and it didn't happen until like the second half or the last third of the game where things started coming to their peak, their crescendo, and you were having all the boss fights and the big story beats. And once those hit and you turned into Venom and stuff, I mean, this game, it could be in my SS tier from that last third, but overall, I think it goes here. And then Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, this is an estimate. This is one where it's like Lords of the Fallen. It should not even be in my top 50 because I've only put in 6 hours. And I started it. The first night was literally the last game before the new year. It was midnight, or it was 10 o'clock at night before the new year. And I'll never forget that first night. I loved the first mission, the first 3 chapters we played. That heist mission where we fought the robot boss, and all the times that Cloud was asking for his money, bitch. And yeah, I think that was the highlight, is Cloud grinding for that green. All right, ladies and gents, Editor Dave here, and I just wanted to quickly come in and correct a few things that have been spoken about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I don't want to scare some people away. I don't want some dislikes on this video, but I've got to speak up and say what's right for the people. Final Fantasy VII Remake is fucking garbage. And that's extreme. I know it's extreme. I don't actually mean the game is garbage compared to every other game I've played. But as far as what people say it is, how good it is, how much of a masterpiece 7, the original, and the remake is, they're all capping. They are all capping by nostalgia. They're all remembering what they were like back in 2004 when they were 7 years old, exploring the game. And maybe in remake when they still had nostalgia, and maybe you're a weirdo who enjoys turn-based combat. I just got to say so many things about this real quick. It's a hot topic for me because I'm currently playing it, and I am actually through Chapter 9. I'm on Chapter 10 now. I'm over halfway through the game, and I need to say a few things. So, first and foremost, I didn't actually put it in this, but I did say in my initial recording that I was potentially going to get addicted to the turn-based / live action combat. Or I don't know how to put it, but basically the real time and the turn-based combat. I said I was going to potentially see if I enjoy it and I might become addicted to it, and it ended up being the opposite. I got so frustrated. Like, yes, it's nice to switch between different characters and do the special moves when you have the charge up and all that, but constantly having to pull out your heals, pull out your special moves, and like pause the game to do those is annoying. But the biggest annoyance is that you can't fucking dodge. I know it's not supposed to be a Souls game. It's not supposed to be that. But it is so annoying when you are fighting someone or fighting a normal mob and you're just trying to roll iframe or dodge iframe or parry iframe, and none of it happens. It's guaranteed taking damage on all those moves, and you just have to heal back up. It's such a frustrating interaction throughout a ton of the game. And also, I've looked up, just like with 16, I looked up like the chapter guides, right? And what's the best chapter? What should I expect? I didn't look for spoilers, but just like expectations as far as where the game peaks and all that. And a lot of people were saying, if it's not chapter 9, I don't know what you're on. And so I played. I spent a weekend. I spent a specific Saturday night playing to get to chapter 9, and I played all through chapter 9. I spent about 4 hours on it. And what are y'all smoking? What are y'all actually smoking? That chapter 9, let me just tell you what it was for me. Walking around the whole like whatever that like not casino, but the area where it's like there's no law and there's a bunch of districts and nightlife and nightlight and all that. That is a cool, aesthetically pleasing city. And maybe some of the characters and things going on are kind of interesting, and it gives you a little bit of that RPG fun with different mini games and all that. But I mean, where's the boss fights? Where are the boss fights? I was expecting to fight Sephiroth or some insane fight, and instead it's like this Colosseum, which was a cool setup, but then the enemies, or the quote-unquote bosses, were like a pack of dogs that I fucking wiped, and then like some other boss fight, two more boss fights I can't remember, they were so insignificant, and then the ultimate boss fight was a house, a fucking house, and to make insults even worse, Cloud was, I'm not trying not to explicit so much here, but Cloud was so useless. He was actually useless. I had to use Aerith and just cast spells like a pussy the entire fight and constantly heal myself. And it was like a 20-minute fight. And I died like 3 times on it. I spent like an hour on this boss fight. I did like 3 attempts because I kept getting so close and I run out of heals or the unavoidable damage came in. And I don't know. I was so frustrated with this one. And for that to be the premier boss fight of the chapter, just an absolute joke. And then everything else, like I don't want to spend so much time on this game, but I feel like it's so fresh in my mind I kind of want to. For instance, after that, I thought, all right, well, maybe that was like halfway through the chapter. They say it is a long chapter. Let's see the ultimate boss fight because there was that big bad guy that we were gonna meet, right? No, instead, what we do is some little side mission where Cloud becomes a fucking bumblebee stripper.
Oh, fucking god.
And we play some dancing mini game goo goo gaga shit. And look, I haven't played the Yakuza series. I haven't played some silly games. I have played some silly games. I watch a lot of silly anime. And maybe for 2 minutes, I was like, ha ha ha, Cloud's dancing like a little dancer girl, a little bumblebee. That's kind of funny and interesting. But then when I realized that was like the climax, the peak of the chapter, that's where probably people put their focus on.
Is this why it's the best? Is this why it's the best? Fuck. I mean really. Like, is this why it's the best? Because we're breaking it down? It's not a boss fight. It's not the Hell House. It's Cloud breakdancing.
I was immediately just baffled by this being called the best chapter in the game. And so that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Again, I'm only halfway through. I just beat chapter 9. I still have chapter 14 in the end game and some of those fights, quote unquote fights people talk about. But I really thought it was going to be different. And the combat is so aggravating sometimes. Also, I missed the elemental orb, whatever it's called, in the chapter 6 or 7. Didn't realize it was, or materia. I didn't realize it was that important, but I guess it fucking was. And the last thing I want to say is, fuck Reno and Rude. Both of those guys can go to hell. Fighting them.
He's still in a room. Fuck!
Was one of the most blood-boiling experiences I've had in an RPG. When you're supposed to feel like a badass, supposed to feel really cool and just enjoying yourself, and you fight those two guys where you can't dodge their attacks, you can't parry, you're just forced to take damage, and I died to Reno like 7 times. I thought it was scripted. I kept dying in second phase when he was at 20% health. He kept doing this one move, and I was like, oh, I guess I just can't fucking do anything about it. And then Rude was even worse because I took a week or 2 break, got back on, so it was when I was playing and I thought this is the worst designed combat system and gameplay mechanics I've ever experienced. And I still hold that true. Like, I did finally figure out, all right, let's rotate between the characters and all that, but it was too late. The damage was done. This whole game, I think it's better than some RPGs. You know, the visuals, the graphics, maybe the story. If we get to the end, I can see potential there, but like, as far as what people say this game is and the story, I'm not seeing it. And I know it's only a third of the game and there's sequels and stuff to follow, but do not tell me this game is goated, that this is a 10 out of 10. This is not. This is a 6 out of 10 game for me. Maybe half of the other RPGs that I've played in the last couple of years are worse, but I wouldn't say this is like my top 3 RPG. I definitely wouldn't say that. And Final Fantasy 16 clears this by a metric mile. It's not even close how much 16 is better than this one. So I don't know. That was a little bit of a rant. I'm apologizing, but I just really needed to let that out because so many people hype this thing up, and it's all cap. It's unbelievable cap. And then the last 4 in this top 50, Dark Souls Remastered. It's better than Dark Souls 1, or better than Dark Souls 2 by a mile, by a fucking metric mile. And yeah, it's called a Masochist Dream for a reason. It was one of my most memorable playthroughs, and a lot of extreme highs and lows, mostly lows, just like DS2. But you got Artorias, you got the open level design and the interconnectedness, and some of the boss fights. I really hated the slow, deliberate combat and just the restrictive feel of your character. But man, watching speedruns of this game, watching people break it, all the different build paths and strategies and routes, that's what makes this, just like Dark Souls 2, an incredible game to me. Not necessarily my personal experience going through the playthrough, because that's another story, but appreciating what it offers outside of that is why it's so high up, just like DS2 in a way. And yeah, I think it's around here. I don't necessarily think it's ever going to go higher. It might go a little lower as I play more games, but I definitely can appreciate what this game did at the time. And then Mario Kart Double Dash. This is my favorite Mario Kart game. I don't see it. Oh, here's Crash. I didn't talk about Crash, but and I didn't talk about a couple of these actually. But yeah, Crash is probably my favorite mechanical racing game from the kid cartoon stuff. It just, the triple drift system was way more fleshed out. Like, that was actually the best part about it. You could actually drift through an entire lane, and all the different side paths and map interactions made Crash Team Racing just a lot better mechanically than Mario Kart games. But the Mario Karts, you're way better off with those from just a casual fun perspective. All the maps, all the uh, challenging, balanced driving that you have against friends. Yeah, I mean, this was the game growing up for a lot of us, and it was my favorite. All the classic maps and everything. So, and then another speed game or racing game. If I'm not mistaken, this is my highest rated. Yeah. So this is Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 specifically, and yeah, this game, it was revolutionary. Playing over at Rahul's house, listening to 103.7 The Q, and staying up late till 3, 4 in the morning on a school night when we were in like second grade, just doing the hot pursuit missions where you were evading the cops and they were dropping bombs on you, and we were grinding for the McLaren and a couple of other cars. Like, that was a real grind. And this game, it has a janky control to it, but it's also like a mastery that feels so good. And yeah, the soundtrack of this game, just the interest that we had in racing and cars and getting everything, it was such a fun time growing up and a core memory of mine. That's why it's this high. It really is. It was, yeah. And then lastly, just missing the top 26 is Injustice 2. I love this game. It's my favorite Injustice gameplay wise. You got Aquaman, you got Black Manta, you got some of my favorite characters out there. I was also really good at this. I played this a lot in college, and there was still a little bit of a player base. Like, there was enough to find matches, and I definitely played over 1,000 games. It was just a little bit ahead, not ahead of its time, but a little bit ahead of my time. I didn't play it when it first dropped, and I didn't really have friends that played it. When I did get them to play, when it was like summer of my sophomore, junior year in college, after I waxed them a couple of times and just perfect gamed them with Aquaman from a distance, no one touched it again. Nobody. And so playing randos online is fun, especially using Deadshot and just using the same spammy combos that I could do forever. Forever. I will always do that one gunshot low into the overhead. Like, I will never get bored of that shit. And all the map transitions and the zoning, like, I love that game. I live for that. But not having friends playing, and then also just the game being kind of dead, weared me down. So I put in a lot of time, especially just like casually watching anime on the side and like doing the AI multiverses events and everything to farm levels and like stuff for my characters. And so I definitely put in more time in this game than the other, but that's why it's here. All right, so making the top tier, the top 26, we've got the Master Chief Collection. And really, this is specifically talking about Halo 1 Combat Evolved, because this is when we played in college, and it was like Aiden, Ryan, Abby, and I just remember like probably junior year, senior year of college, finally getting into this and like playing the Halo 1 Headhunter, I think is what it was called, where it was like the headshot only, and you use that Magnum pistol from the first game, and like just ripping wigs and playing this late night with your boys, like as a squad, and just crushing lobbies and pub stomping and that mode, just all the classic maps. It was so simple, but also still had some skill to it, like with the reaction time and the quick aim. And yeah, it was an absolute blast. I loved just listening to anime music and my whole soundtrack, my whole playlist, and just vibing out with the gentleman. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't get better than that. That's why it's my favorite Halo, because I think if I were to pick any Halo right now to just hop on with the squad and like play a certain mode, it's Halo 1 on the Master Chief Collection, Headhunter only, just entering the same 4 or 5 maps, spawn trapping, hitting the skill shots, and just chilling. And then Call of Duty Ghost. Now, this is a hot take. I know that you look at all these games and you're thinking, he's got Call of Duty Ghosts in his top tier, in his top 26, and yes, I do. A lot of it comes down to my personal experience with it, as a lot of these do.
Right.
Because Ghost, for me, was ninth grade. It was Zach, Alex, and sometimes Slurp. Fuck that kid. But
Went there again.
we basically played this, I remember, like, for a whole season, for all of ninth grade. We would, on weeknights, go to the local gas station, get some Red Bull, then pretend to hop in bed and go to bed at like 9 p.m., right? And then we'd trick our mom, thinking we were asleep, wake back up at 10 or 11, pop the Red Bull. It's already insane, right? Pop the Red Bull at 10 or 11 on a weeknight, and then play 3v3, 4v4 GBs on repeat every single night on a weeknight. And then we'd go to class on the following day, English, 2:30 p.m. I remember it like it was yesterday, and we would just be like deliriously tired but laughing our asses off at someone who got world starred last night. I know that this game didn't really have great multiplayer and campaign and all that, but dude, the Extinction I actually enjoyed. I really enjoyed Extinction, even though once you played it once, got through it, it was kind of done in dust. But I really enjoyed the first, few hours and week of doing Extinction. The maps, even maybe just the competitive maps of S&D, like Octane and Sav and what's that, Freight, and like a couple others. Like I actually thought the S&D, the competitive maps, were amazing. And then the S&D, like, yeah, Domination and Blitz. Actually, Blitz was a really fun game mode too. But S&D was where this game shined. You talked to a lot of COD pros, and like Ghost had one of the best S&D scenes in the history of COD. And that was when wagers were at its highest. That's when you had Fizzerp and Killa and all the people just really grinding out strats and nade spots and all the fun different tourneys that you were watching going on. And Ghost was just that game for us. We just had a huge addiction to it, a big passion. We played it. We stayed up late to grind, and just, man, it was a lot of fun. And it was picking right up off of Black Ops 2, which is a tragedy. And that's why it gets slammed so hard, but I loved it. And it goes up here. And then the last Injustice game is the Injustice Mobile. I had to separate these two for sure. The mobile game this was like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and then finally in 9th grade when we were on the basketball team with Abby, just having spend the nights, putting in hundreds of hours into grinding different teams and like gear and all that. And like, yeah, it's not really on a controller. You're on your iPad or your iPhone. But man, doing all that back in the day, like it was so much fun. Just laying in the bed, getting the special QuickTime events and all the different super moves. And I don't know, I put in probably more hours on Injustice Mobile than I even did on Injustice 2. And it was just the peak age to play it as well, and just playing with friends. So, and then the final Smash game to talk about is Smash Brawl on the Wii. And the reason why this is this high up is because of my personal experience. Again, it was 4th, 5th, 6th grade when we just got the Wii, and we'd have so many spend the nights at our place, and just everyone would be playing Smash. All the friend group was into it. We were all passionate, really wanted to be good at this game. And it was very competitive, very heated, and we put in a ton of hours. It was one of the staples in the household, and so that's why it's this high up. It had a decent amount of characters and maps, and create your own maps too. And it was just when our passion was at its highest for this kind of game. And that's why it's there. Medal of Honor, I gotta shout out Medal of Honor. This is where men were made back in the fucking day. This is where friendships were ended. The amount of screen picking allegations that we had to suffer through when you were just straight up better than the other player, it was insane. And this is European Assault, so I'm pretty sure this is like the single player one that had the D-Day mission, which was iconic back when we were playing it. And just the multiplayer, like playing with your friends. This was, I talk about Smash and Brawl being that. No, this was the go-to co-op game. Like when all the friends were over, this was like the premier one. And it just got so heated. Everyone was wanting to just, I don't know, dominate at it. And there was a couple of other Medal of Honor games that really hit the spot. And I don't have them listed here, like Frontier, I think, and a couple others. But yeah, this game, man, oh, chef's kiss, chef's kiss. And then moving on, Lego Star Wars 2. It's basically like Super Mario Sunshine for me. Personal favorite. What a classic, timeless game. This was back when they were just mumbling. You know, there was just mumble. There was no actual dialogue or voice acting. It was very janky graphics and controls, but god damn, this game slapped. Alex and I playing in our original bedroom, like on the base floor, playing on the Cars TV, and just staying up super late, putting hours into this game because we were so young, like elementary school, didn't know how to play it, but still just grinding it out. And I think just like Super Mario Sunshine, the reason why it makes a resurgence, besides just all the classic kid fun of the game, is the fact that I played it again in college and played it with Ryan. And I remember going through the whole game, like kind of speed running it, and realizing like how much better we got, or like how much more we understood it. And then like struggling, Aiden actually shitting the sheets in the last level on the lava when you were going through the parkour. That man could not save his life. I think about the times in high school when Ryan and I played and we were doing the speedster mission where like you were going through the desert and the rocks. Why am I blanking on the name of it? But basically, like, everyone knows that mission I'm talking about, where like you're using the jet skis or the speedsters, and there's the rocks flying everywhere, and you've got to race and beat the AI. And that shit was actually fucking impossible. Like, it actually was insane, and the difficulty on that was just not balanced. But that was what made it so charming. Like a lot of the game, just the unfairness and the craziness of it. And the last thing to top it all off is the speed runs. I went down another rabbit hole of speed runs in college senior year, just like Sunshine. And Star Wars 2, watching the history of the speed runs in this game, if you haven't seen it and you've played this game, go watch it. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say is go watch it. You will actually have your mind blown. Mind-blowing stuff. And then moving on, RuneScape, a very niche, unique pick. Not any other MMORPGs out here on the list, but this was all that was needed. You know, the cousins showed us the way back in elementary school. We had a huge addiction to playing RuneScape on our mom's computer with the 20 ping 1 bar Wi-Fi back when Ethernet wasn't even a thing and we had to share the computer. And it took you like 7 seconds to click somewhere and have your character move. This is where men were made as well. You talk about the grand exchange, right? All the trading, the 40 LB or whatever it was for lobster, and just fucking people over under the table. I mean, this was where my finance passion stemmed from. This is what got me into the business world, got me into finance, was just learning to trade, learning to just screw each other over on deals, just run a great business out there on the grand exchange. And then there's just like everything else, right? Like farming, the different iron giants or giants and that one little entrance, all the different farming methods and the levels that you go through, the dungeoneering, I think it was what it was called, all the different, it wasn't necessarily skill to the game. It was just like the depth of the actual skills, like the 99 out of 99s, the grind of it, knowing where everything was on the map and how to farm efficiently and everything else. Like, this game just had so much going on, and it was something we never played before, but we had a huge addiction to it. So I love RuneScape. I really do. I even played it in high school and college a little bit, but I just can't sink the hours in the same way I did growing up. But I got to respect it, and it's got to be in the top tier. And then moving into a Souls game, we've got Dark Souls 3. So Dark Souls 3 it's consistent. and I would put it higher, but I think it wasn't stand out enough like some of the other games and Souls games even. So that's why it's right here. It's still in the top tier. I think it's a pretty exceptional game. Remembering the first night I ever played it with Aiden, where I got actually blackout pissed drunk and I couldn't beat Fort for like 2 hours and couldn't figure out where I was going, and just the quality of the entire game, right? The quality of the level design, the enemy design, the bosses, the music, the soundtracks, the story, right? Wrapping up the Souls trilogy or the Dark Souls trilogy. This game really shines in its boss fights. There's so many quality ones, and I think about that night raging with Curse Rotted Greatwood and then the Crystal Sage bitch. What is that? But then you have the, what do you call this guy? Why am I blanking on the Abyss Watchers? You've got. All right, this is what I need. I needed this. I needed this.
Okay.
Give me the tornado. Open up the smoke. Let me at him. Let me at him. Hold off the fucking handcuffs. I'm ready to fuck him up.
He's a dog on a leash.
The Twin Princes. You've got all of the DLC and Gale. I mean, thinking about that final cinematic cutscene, that Dark Soul, give me your soul guy. Like, man, that Sister Frida, right? She was insane. I'd spent like 5 hours on her, and all the different playthroughs, like going back and doing the Cinders mod, which I actually ended up hating because it was so difficult. Almost snapped my controller after 5 hours on Sister Frida. Like, I don't get why when I just want to die, like fucking to end me, it's like a whole process. What are we playing?
Return from whence thou camest, for that
Like Absolute Zombies?
With the dog shit dagger build I had, but then returning on the Convergence mod, which was one of my favorite modded playthroughs, if not my favorite modded playthrough ever. Yeah, I mean, this game is really strong, really solid. I just don't think it has as much high or as many highs and peaks as the other Souls games and other games in general. So that's why it's here, but it's still in the top tier. And Minecraft, it's Minecraft. We know it's why it's here. The speed running, the open, not skybox, but the sandbox of your mind and creativity. You got to get on once a year, once a week, and just play with the boys. Watching the Maya Knight series with Syndicate and Tucker and Captain Sparkles was a ton of fun in middle school, and all the Hunger Games modes and all of that, the parkour, facing the End Dragon or whatever it's called. So yeah, Minecraft. And then we got Borderlands pre-sequel. Shout out the dude from Gearbox 2K or Australia when they shut down their studios, and I was playing this back in college and when I graduated, like 10 years after it came out, and I was begging the guy to give me the Moonscaper because I pre-ordered the game, but I didn't have that exact copy, or I lost the Moonscaper or something, and he actually gave it to me. Like, a guy from a company that disbanded years prior, he actually responded to my ticket and then gave me an in-game Moonscaper. And that was like one of the coolest moments ever. Like, the dude is a legend for that. But yeah, to talk about this game real quick, I loved it. The first week it came out, I played with Barrett. I skipped school like for a couple days, pretended to be sick just to beat it. And you talk about like that grind, that addiction, just 50 hours within that first week, farming Irajira, the secret lava cave boss, on repeat, doing the moon grind or whatever it was called, glitches. And the game just had so much going on. Like, yeah, it lacked DLC, and if it did have DLC, I think it might be better than Borderlands 2. But it had the Moonscaper skips and jumps. It had all the space, different areas that you could like jetpack through basically, and you had the ground slams that was so satisfying, and all the different jumps and boss fights and the dialogue. Like, you got that just unique Aussie kind of comical, goofy dialogue, and the story too, just like Jack's rise to power and all the different Handsome Jack moments, and the ending where he's killing his boss and stuff. Like, you had some really strong story beats. Probably my second favorite Borderlands story. So yeah, I loved the pre-sequel. It's arguably my favorite Borderlands game, just from a personal preference, but yeah, definitely up here. And then Strikers Strikers is the game. I know I said it about Medal of Honor, but Strikers is the game. It is the game. It every time everyone comes over, it is like the competitive, most heated, energetic session of just everyone trying to be the best and like pull up random super strikes, talking mad shit after they won the game and shut your ass out. All the crazy like hit checks into the fences, the electric fences, hearing Princess Peach squeal like oh man, it is so good. And I think the best thing about this game is like the depth of the mechanics, because we played this growing up and it was fun, one of our favorite Mario games. But what really makes it in the top 26 and my favorite Mario game on the list, as you can see, is that when we played this back in college, when we brought the GameCube, it actually was revolutionary. Figuring out how much skill gap there is to this game, like all the different mechanics and ways that you can truly outshine an opponent or like your friends. And so once we discovered that and we started building metas of like, oh, this Mario's actually broken and Waluigi's broken and Donkey Kong is the worst, and like all the different ways you can power up and just the different decision making throughout the game, it really adds up. And so probably out of all the Mario games, this is the most skill gapped, and that's why we loved it. It was just so competitive. And also the fact that it made a huge resurgence back in college, and then all the crazy sessions we had after college. So that's why it's this high. It's just fucking amazing. Fortnite. I don't want to call myself a Fortnite kid. I really don't, but I was. This was back freshman year of college when Barstool was posting highlights every single night of someone at a party hitting a crazy trick shot or getting a victory royale. And when you played this on in the first year or two, right, when like Ninja had his huge come up and Drake was even playing it, Travis Scott, this was cool kid stuff. This was like you got bitches over this game. Like you were hitting 15 kill battle royale victory kind of sessions. You were getting mad hoes over this. And then something turned where like if you still played it 3 or 4 years later and you were building 3-story or empires and skyscrapers and stuff like that, then people started calling you fucking virgins and like have a sweat and go get outside, touch grass stuff. And that's when it kind of fell off to me. And also I kind of got bored of it. But this was revolutionary. It brought out the battle royale genre. I had a huge addiction to it freshman year. I would skip class. I would only play this game. I mean, I had a huge problem with it, but that's why it's this high up. I continually want to put it lower because I want to appreciate the other games, but I can't not acknowledge like how many hours, how obsessed I was with it, and just how good it was at the time. GTA 5. I think everyone just like Minecraft knows why it's here. The ultimate friend game, the ultimate co-op, not even co-op game, but just online game. Going into your friend's house, smoking the bong or hitting the bong and smoking the crab pipe and just causing terror around the city, blowing shit up, bringing in your tank, bringing in your jet, annihilating someone on a 20 kill streak, the bunkers, flying around, doing the motorcycle crazy jumps from the mountains. I remember Abby and I breaking into Fort Zancudo that one night. It was a glorious mission. We spent like 4 or 5 hours developing different strats to actually breaking into Fort Zancudo before you really could and trying to steal the jet. And that was a mission and a half. And all the times that we did the heist missions in like junior summer of high school with Rahul, Alex, and Abby, and Abby being stingy with the pay cuts, giving us 10% each and him the most because he paid for the setup and shit. And it's all the heated stuff for that, the mini games, right? The car, different like kind of games that you could do, the custom, I don't know what they called them, like the custom quests or whatever they called, like where you could pick them from like creators, other people who played the game. And they were just crazy. Like you could have stuff in the sky where you just knock each other off, like bumper carts. There was the one kind of FPS or the shooting mode where like you jumped out of the skyscrapers or the helicopters, and there was this giant open little city map where you would do like 2v2s or whatever, and like you would kind of gun each other. So just a lot of creativity, a lot of core memories, and just great fun. And can't wait for GTA 6. And yeah, also shout out Strip Club and everything else. Black Ops 2. Gonna try and get through these a little bit more quicker, but Black Ops 2 is not my best COD or my favorite COD, but you can't deny it. You can't deny this thing. It is a powerhouse. It is most people's favorite COD. And yeah, it's as balanced as it gets, as competitive as it gets. The gunplay is phenomenal. The MSMC, the M8, it doesn't get better than that. The Ballista, the DSR, right? The multiplayer maps, classics, the zombies, transit, getting left behind on the bus, shitting yourself, having to run through with all the scratchers or the scragglers clinging to your back, running through the lava without Jug, trying to skip through that town, or was it not town section? It was the dining depot or whatever, like trying to skip through that giant lava run, and all the Easter eggs like on the side with the Bowie knife and the Nocturne Totem, and oh man, this transit was just, a lot of people hate on that map, but I thought it was so fun. And then you got town, just classic survival round based, playing with the boys. You got Die Rise, you've got Derice, and then what am I missing? Oh, Buried, right? And then Origins. Oh my God, Origins. I didn't play Origins actually. I know I'm capping on that one, but we'll talk about it in Black Ops 3. And yeah, this game just had all the maps. It had all the gunplay. It was just peak Call of Duty. And then past that, we've got 2 Souls games. So we've got Bloodborne and then Sekiro. And in this order, I think Bloodborne, what is this? 11, 12. So in my 12th place, you got Bloodborne, 11, Sekiro. Bloodborne to me is, I think it would have been higher than Sekiro if it wasn't for that first playthrough. But I mean, you talk about extreme highs, like the peaks of Souls games, like the old Hunters DLC, Ludwig.
Yes! Yes! Come on! I'm the best in the game!
Maria, Koss, Gehrman, the gameplay. That's also why Dark Souls 3 is lower than these by a good margin, is that I love the gameplay and the unique combat of Bloodborne and Sekiro over the traditional Souls. And so even though there's more consistency and quality with Dark Souls 3 bosses and all that, the actual enjoyment of the combat with the parrying system with the guns, the Bloodborne dashing, the quick aggressive, like the rally system, just so much, there was so much quick actions and just aggressive encouragement in this game. And just the challenge of the bosses, the aesthetic, the dark lore. Yeah, so that's why Bloodborne's higher. I just really enjoyed it, and Ludwig was arguably my favorite boss fight of all time. He took only like 15 hours, and yeah, I think also the reason why Sekiro's higher, well, we'll go ahead and talk about Sekiro now. One, it doesn't have blood vials, because those were annoying, and also it's just the gameplay and the combat. I love parrying. This game perfected it. The boss fights are the best. They're less boss fights, but they're more quality, right? They focus on quality over the quantity, and you talk about the best mechanical encounters, best mechanical triumphs, Owl, Ishin, Genichiro, as much as I hate to say it. We'll have a Soulsborne boss tier list and Soulsborne game tier list, as I said, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But yeah, Sekiro, first playthrough, immaculate, vibes, did not know how to Makiri counter, and then we had to do a reset because my dumbass did the wrong ending. And so I did New Game Plus, and then did the Passion playthrough with that, and all my different rivalries with Ishin and Genichiro, ripping the blinker left and right, out of my mind, just unhinged behavior out of me.
I mean, you fucking dismantled that guy. Oh,
That's a good term for it.
fucking lord.
That's a good term
You
for it.
just dismantled him. Now let's.
I would fucking say I did! I would say that I did! God damn it! This entire fucking weekend! This entire night! I've been getting my fucking cheeks clapped, bent over a barrel, shown the 69 states, and finally I get one just for me. One just for me where I get to 2v1 him, and I get to fucking slap his ass. Finally one for the home team. Shit.
Oh yeah. Fuck
Just so
yeah.
that I can go face Owl for 6 hours to never win. Yes! Yes!
And then you got the Resurrection mod, which is arguably my favorite mod or my favorite playthrough of Sekiro. So it lives up to hype. It's so consistently good, and I love the gameplay. I wish there was a sequel. It doesn't get better than that for me. Well, it does, but you know what I mean. And then talking about the Mortal Kombats of the world. So maybe September of 22, I got into MK11 because of a price discount and Aiden saying we should try it out. And I did it once in college, like on a random night. Ryan and I played like the story mode, but I really didn't dive into this game or look into it until September of 22. And once I did, everything changed. Fighting games for me were always casual, but it was like you had the FPSs, you had the CODs, a little bit of the Halos, and the random one-offs. But this was like a staple for me now. And I don't know what else to say about it. Like to me, what I love about fighting games is the depth, especially these NRS games, like all the different micro strats and the mind fucking and the ways that you can outplay your opponents. This is what really made me realize I love 1v1s. I love having to outplay your opponent and not have to rely on teammates. And this game just lends itself really well. I know I'm talking about MK11, but both games, they just lend themselves well to my skill set and my preferences of like quick paced decision making, rapid decision making, reaction time, just outplaying, outreading opponents, like it just execution, all those things I do really well. And so I strive at these games. I'm really good at them, and that plays into my likeness, but also just everything about it. It was my competitive replacement to COD. So after taking a break from Black Ops 4 and Cold War, we basically stopped with our friend group, like playing GBs and tourneys and getting into COD and just competitive games in general. And then this came out, and things changed. I got really into MK. I put in 450 hours on MK11. I've already put in over 200 on Mortal Kombat 1. I think Mortal Kombat 1 in the long run is going to be better than MK11 for me. But the reason why it's lower is that MK11 started it all, and so I've got to pay tribute to it. And at some point, it probably will get surpassed by MK1, but I got to pay respect. Johnny Cage, Shang Tsung, Kung Lao, Aaron Black started out with him. Just so many favorite mains in that game, and it was so much simpler with the mechanics and the accessibility for me. That's why I think I got into MK. It taught me a lot about fighting games, made me go back and play Injustice 2 and realize like everything that I wasn't doing and just optimizing. And yeah, it's an addiction. It really is an addiction. As I said, I'm playing it this year. I'm still going to keep grinding ranked, and it's that competitive replacement for COD for me. I get more heated in Mortal Kombat than any other game besides Dark Souls 2. And I'd argue MK still gets me going. Like, I'll play one rank set, and I'll make a couple of insane reads and plays, and I'll be feeling like a god on top of the world. Nothing could bring me down. Next game, I get outplayed, I get punished hard, or I make a stupid mistake, don't get spaced, get neutral fucked, and then I am like blood boiling rage. I've punched this wooden desk right here. I've punched this thing so many times that I pretty much have permanent knuckle damage, bone damage to my right hand, because I've full blown like tried to punching bag this wooden desk, and it's fought back. It's had hands itself. And I've had to like be out of commission from gaming and like using this right hand for a couple weeks at a time. I'm pretty sure I've fractured my knuckles from just the sheer passion that I put into this desk from losing a set or just playing bad. And some people could call it a problem. I call it passion personally. And yeah, Mortal Kombat 1 brings out the absolute best and the absolute worst in me. It is so good. It is so addicting. It is a staple for me going forward. Every single Mortal Kombat, they're in my top 10. I had to at least make sure both were in my top 10. But I honestly, like at this point, moving forward, I could see them being in my top 3. Like right behind Elden Ring and Rise. That they're that good to me. And yeah, I'm just fucking addicted. I love Mortal Kombat. I'm sick at it. I'm sick at the games. And man, I just finally found it. I finally found that competitive competitive game. And then here we've got number 9 and 8, or what is this? 8 and 7. We've got 2 single player experiences. They go hand in hand. Played them last year, and they were perfect playthroughs. They really were. Final Fantasy 16 was my first real official mainline Final Fantasy game. It is, in my opinion, the best Final Fantasy game, even though I've barely touched Remake and I haven't really played anything else. I just can't imagine anything topping this. It was that fucking good. I got addicted to it in December. I played it all of December, and just around Christmas time, I was so entranced and immersed in this world, the characters, the dialogue, the world building. I had a script for this thing in one of my other videos that we were doing, and I spent like 15 minutes gluck gaslighting this thing into oblivion. It was so incredible, and it was such an immersive experience, something that like I was really dying to have. And I don't know, there was a lot of things that made it stand out and special to me. One, I hadn't been watching anime frequently as much as I had been before, and I was playing a lot of games, just go, a lot of Souls games, and so I was getting worn down. And to play this Final Fantasy game where you're just kind of sitting back, and it's the most movie-centric sort of storytelling where, yes, there's still gameplay, and there's actually a lot of depth and Devil May Cry 5 similarities, but you really are more watching cutscenes and sitting back and relaxing and enjoying the story. That was a breath of fresh air for me, and I was completely fine with what they did. Just taking over, giving me that streamlined experience. It lacks the RPG elements that 7 Remake and other Final Fantasies and RPGs have, but it didn't matter to me. It's got plenty of other great aspects. The soundtrack is godlike. It really is. I've got Sail to Forbidden Seas and Fire, whatever that song. Those things make me want to run through a brick wall, straight up, dead ass. They're that fucking good. And the boss fights, man. The boss fights. Bahamut is my favorite boss experience of all time. All time. There may be more mechanically satisfying encounters and challenges with like Neo that's coming up, with Souls games, Souls-likes, some other game. But to me, the experience of the Bahamut boss fight from a sheer spectacle and hype and exhilaration standpoint is unmatched. It is unfucking matched. That hour and a half sequence of that Phoenix Shine Bright or whatever chapter where you go in nighttime, Prince Dion's lighting the city on fire, and then you have all the peak storytelling moments where like you have revelations and character interactions that just like really push the story forward and like actually have some crazy results and consequences. And then it all comes down to this Bahamut fight where you're just going through a billion different laser beams, and then you're going in space, and then there's mega flares and giga flares and crazy explosions, and just it's eye candy on eye candy on eye candy, and it is so fucking immersive and just incredible on every single ratio. And the music to top it all off, I mean, it was such a special experience for me. And that fight, along with like so many of the others, the Titan fight, both Titan fights, the Typhon fight, the fight in the beginning where you're fighting yourself, when you're fighting the bitch, whatever her name is, Benedicta, and then even the final boss, Ultima, like, and even Odin, I'm forgetting, like every single icon fight in this game had batshit levels of insanity and scale and intensity and hype. And just building up the 3-4 hours in between each of them was such a magical experience where I was so entranced by the world, I was so in love with the dialogue and the character interactions and the story that I was fine to keep going through side quests or to keep going through different areas of the game just to get to the boss fights because they were that good. I won't waste any more time talking about this game. I think it being in the 8th place speaks enough for itself. It is a staple for me going forward playing Final Fantasy games because of this alone. And then Jedi Survivor, the number 7 spot. Lucky number 7. Jedi Survivor, another perfect playthrough start to finish. I think the reason why Jedi Survivor is higher than Final Fantasy is because it was more fun. It just had that fun aspect to it, that fun factor. Jedi Survivor was more cool and more epic but Jedi Survivor, or Final Fantasy 16, I don't know what I said, but Jedi Survivor was more fun. You just had a smile on your face. You were laughing, seeing Cal talk about prosperity and the Jedi and what's justice when he's in his, mullet, wife beater, white shirt, and he's just right up close, comically close to one of the NPCs. It's just gold. You got the Spawn of Ogdo boss fight, all the different puzzles and traversal. This game has the best movement, in my opinion. Better than Spider-Man, better than Monster Hunter and whatever other games you come up with. I love the movement and the traversal and the parkour in this game. It really adds to the gameplay. And just all the mission structures, the Metroidvania style of like coming back to Kobo, the hub, and exploring things. Again, I'm not going to make a 20-minute segment here on this one game, but I do have a playthrough that I've already done with it, and I'm probably going to talk about it more in that and show some of the highlights from it. So yeah, this game is number 7. It is, outside of Borderlands 2, it looks like. Well, no, that's not true, but yeah, it's phenomenal stuff. It was so much fun, and I loved playing as Cal and all the different Jedi stances and ways that you could approach the combat and the levels. So it goes there. And then the 2 Black Ops games, my favorite Black Ops games. 4 was probably my most competitive. It was my best COD. It was when Alex, Abby, and I were like #1 ranked 3v3 team ladder on GBs, and like we were long-standing #1 for months, and everyone was challenging us. We were running tourneys and having success in those, and I just really loved like the stim shot, the 150 health, the gunplay, the sniping, even the maps, like the competitive S&D maps and Hardpoint. It all played really well in this game. And so I thought it was one of my favorites. And then you got Specialist as well. And then Black Ops 3, the reason why it's higher is, one, I think it is a better game. It has a little bit more to offer. Like I did my first actual Easter egg with 9 on Black Ops 4, but you can't argue that Black Ops 3 Zombies is the best zombies of all of them. You've got the remastered of Origins. You've got the remaster of the other classics. And then you've got Garad Krovi. You've got Der Eisendrache. Just so many incredible zombies maps. And then you got the experience of it, right? Us playing back in junior year of high school with probably the peak crowd. It was when we had 8 to 10 people on at all times, constantly running wagers or GBs or just private customs, learning the game, figuring out flank spots and different sniping off the rip spots, and the gunplay, the pubs in this game with all the score streaks. Who cares about campaign in any of these, really? But the multiplayer, the competitive scene, it was just all at its peak. And I love the jetpack too. It was probably my favorite jetpack COD. Best COD anyways, but yeah, Black Ops 3 is probably my favorite. And then the top 4, you've got Smite. Editor Dave back at it once again. And to go over a couple of things here, Smite is a game that could easily be top 3. It could be top 2. Sheer hours alone, you would think it is my number 1. I have about 1,300 hours on this game. It is the only MOBA that I have actually ever grinded and taken an interest in. I got into it back in 9th grade when Abby was playing, and so we slammed a lot of 3v3 Joust back in Season 4, and then took a little bit of a break, got back into it in college when some other friends picked it up as well back in Season 7, and so Season 7 and 8 put a ton of hours into it. And then 9 and 10, Season 9 and 10, I took a 2-year break, growing up, graduating, all those things. And then I came back when Smite 2 got announced, and I've been playing it a ton as well. I would say, well, first off, let me show you this. This is a tier list of my favorite gods that I created just this last week after slamming some queues. And I want to go over a couple of notable mentions here. First and foremost, I fucking hate healers and healing metas. So most of those gods go down here. Barons are absolute trolls. And same thing as Nox, the worst god in the entire game, in my opinion. And then moving up, you can kind of see the rest of the gods if you care for them. But the main entree here is to talk about my favorite tier of gods. And so starting us off, we've got Euler. Nothing beats hitting the Euler Wombo combo attack chain, and he is, in my opinion, the best designed god. I'm an F7 warrior, Warrior is my go-to class. I play solo lane as my main, and Euler's an exception. I have 6,000 worshippers. He's my most played god, my favorite god of all time, and I will always hit Qs with him. And then Tyr, absolutely love Tyr. Probably my second favorite god now. I had a rough start learning him, and once I got into him, I basically only played him for several months. King Arthur, same kind of way, except he was a god that when he launched I was playing a ton of when he was really busted. So have a ton of fun with Arthur. And those three are kind of my top three not getting touched best favorite gods. And they all have a trend of being ability spammers. So each of them kind of have two different stances, and there's a fun balance of using all 7, 8 abilities in your kit and figuring out how to optimize and just abuse them. And that's why I like these gods so much. And then Gilgamesh, fucking love Gilgamesh. I also was like Tyr, where I started off terribly with him, didn't know how to really use him, and then over time I slowly understood his kit. And he has one of my favorite abilities in the entire game. Absolutely roundhouse boot kicking, curb stomping some pussy into a wall and deleting them is one of my favorite things in the game. Susano, just a sick ass assassin, very cool. A lot of interesting interactions and awesome 1v1 potential. Thanatos, probably the coolest design god in the game, and definitely a badass on the map. And Mercury, Kuzenbo, Huyi, Thor, Osiris. Osiris is probably my first god I ever played, and he's my second most played god as well. Played him a lot in 3v3 joust, and he's the old reliable, but he's nowadays a little bit more boring than like a Gilgamesh or Tyr. And then Loki, before his rework, played a shit ton of him, one of my most played gods up until they reworked him. And then you can kind of see some other favorites in this tier as well that I won't really touch on. That's just a brief overview of kind of what I like, my favorite gods, how they're designed, how they play, and all of that. And then the only other things I like to talk about with Smite is it's a game that I have fallen out of love with in recent memory over the last 2 years, for a big part of it being that you rely so much on teammates, and I can't stand that anymore. There was a time when I was growing up on COD and all of that where I liked playing with friends, liked playing on teams and carrying other players and feeling good about myself, but nowadays it's just a hindrance. It's a total mind detriment. I lose so much mental capacity for getting diffed by an enemy jungler or just my team in general, and I really like to rely on myself nowadays. That's why I really lean heavily into fighting games. But that's besides the point. It's a style of game with a 5v5 team center that isn't as much of an interest for me, but I still can go back every now and then and play, and I'm very excited for Smite 2 as well, which is not in one of the backlog games, but it should be. I love this game to death. It's very meta dependent. You know, when it's very late game, healers, crit, those kind of metas, I'm fucking out. But when it's warriors, early game dominance, running down the lane, F6, W keying everybody, that's where I shine. And yeah, absolutely love it. So Smite is number 4. Like I said, it could be number 3, could absolutely be number 2 as well. I don't think it's my favorite game of all time. It's definitely my most played, but it deserves my top tier. In bronze place, my third favorite game of all time goes to Borderlands 2, and this game is iconic. That's the word for it. You got Sanctuary, the classic home base. I think the pre-sequel's Concordia is better, and Borderlands 3's Sanctuary ship was my favorite of all the games, but you can't deny the iconicism of the OG. Plus all the super cool glitches within Sanctuary, like the infinite XP glitch that you could do if you got behind the shooting range and accepted a specific mission from Marcus. You could use an infinity pistol and shoot the bandit over and over. And I remember back in freshman year of college when Aiden and I got back into the game, we threw rubber bands on the controller triggers and let that bitch grind overnight until we were max levels. And just kind of insane stuff. That's the charm of this game and Borderlands as a series in general. There's so many fascinating ways to break Borderlands, whether it's XP glitches like that, crazy build exploits where you're dealing billions of damage and one-shotting everything, even without glitching. There's all of the interesting farming strats and optimizations that add a ton of depth to the games. I've said it about Mortal Kombat and fighting games. I've said it about other games as well. I'll say it here, and I'll say it on the final 2 games. Depth is fucking massive for me. I'm not the biggest nerd or in the weeds guy, but I do prefer games that are way more than surface level, that have satisfying mechanics to learn, interesting gameplay with extreme levels of skill gap, unique systems and things within the game that take time to understand and get good with. Yeah, when I was in middle school, it was obviously fun just hopping on COD with the boys and running up pub lobbies, but even with that, I always wanted more. I wanted to play GBs, wagers, tourneys, be the best, and all of that required learning and mastering more of the game than a casual or normal player would. And nowadays, even that's too little, too simple. So games like Borderlands, and especially Borderlands 2, offered insane depth and interesting ideas that not a lot of games have ever replicated. Just to name a few wild concepts, think about all of the raid bosses in the game, how hard it is to summon Vermivorous, the Invincible, or find Terramorphous, how difficult it is to actually beat Hyperius or Master G without knowing the cheese strats. And it's much, much more than that. Like, what's the best XP farm for your current level or the mission that you're on? What's the best gear? What's the best build? Think about how insane it is that you can farm Savage Lee, an insignificant early game mini boss, for the double penetrating Unkempt Herald off rip, basically at the very beginning of the game, and you can have the best gun in the entire game to carry you through a whole playthrough. Think about the movement tech using double Norfleets and grenade jumps that break the map and glitch you into areas you couldn't before, like skipping all of Raid on Digistruct Peaks area and getting OP levels easily. The game was truly ahead of its time, and it's the gift that keeps on giving, folks. People still play Borderlands 2 10 plus years later. People are still creating new mods to enjoy it in different ways. You can sink hundreds of hours. Shit, you could probably spend thousands of hours, a whole lifetime, just going for the 94% sham shield drop from the bunker. The RNG in this game is literally perfect. It's actually addicting to grind for gear and weapons. Even the gear and weapons have insane RNG within them, like who the manufacturer is and the line item prefixes. Take, for instance, that Savage Lee Unkempt Herald drop. There is a 0.43% chance that you actually get the perfect Deepa. Which is made up of like a 3% chance that he drops an Unkempt Herald in general, plus / added the additional 1 in 7 chance that you get the double penetrating prefix. So a 3 in 700 chance of getting it. But I'm also the type of degenerate gambler who take those odds and grind for it. That's part of why the game is such an amazing time for me. The drop rates are just masterfully crafted and calculated, and they could be a whole nother video topic. The side quests are awesome. The side content in general is awesome. All the DLCs were amazing, especially Tiny Tina's. Shout out when Abby and I played through it in high school. There's infinite replayability with using different characters, using different builds, going for challenge runs, or simply hopping on to enjoy the story again, because that's another big part of Borderlands 2 that beats the other games and a lot of games in general, is its story. Handsome Jack, the Vault. This is one of the coolest fictional worlds and stories in a video game, with some of the best characters and writing in anything. And it's constantly entertaining, hilarious, epic, crazy, all the words. I want to shout out a few final things regarding this game. Shout out the plethora of sick bosses, including Veracitus, you son of a bitch, when you took Aiden and I an hour of straight up luck just to kill you. Piece of shit, but love him for it. Chromarax for his design and the arena and scale, giving you that Aquaman vibe. The bunker for the vibiest boss arena in any game. I spent countless hours farming Cash and Iridium and one-shotting him with my Zero build. Shout out Doc Mercy for dropping the Infinity Pistol. Shout out Terramorphous, the Warrior, the conference call before it got nerfed, and all the rest of bosses, weapons, and things within the game that I'm forgetting. But you guys know who you are. You know you're legendary. This series is very unique in its art style, its way of storytelling, its gameplay loop, all of it. If you haven't played a Borderlands game yet, I highly recommend that you play this one. Borderlands 2 is my third favorite game of all time. It's the best of the series, and I can't wait for Borderlands 4. Alright, in silver place, Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak. Now, when you talk about dedication and investment of time, Monster Hunter is about as serious as it gets. 500 plus hours on Rise, 400 of it being on the Switch and 100 already on the PC. This game alone made buying the Nintendo Switch worth it. I may not have squeezed the juice out of every other Mario game and one-off purchases, but Rise made up for it, and then some. I immediately knew that I was going to love this game. It was so different from all the games I'd experienced before. If we're being honest, Rise was my first true RPG. I'd have to think hard on that, but I'd say so. At least modern RPG. And you could even say that playing Rise was the catalyst for Elden Ring, since if I hadn't gotten so addicted to Rise, I may not have even entertained the idea of Elden Ring or Souls games. And that first month of February, before Miyazaki took over, I probably reached 150 hours on Rise. I'd even say that Rise was my motivation for my YouTube channel, because obviously it's been mainly Souls content, but when you look at the first few videos and my most successful videos, they were Rise related. There's so much going on with this game and series that it's hard to pinpoint what exactly makes it amazing. Probably my favorite thing about Rise and Monster Hunter is its depth. I know, shocking revelation here, but there are so many systems and mechanics in this game that are incredible. You've got the gameplay side, starting with the 14 weapons that each offer completely different experiences, and they take hours just to learn the core stuff and even longer to master. And that was all before Sunbreak sniffed crack and ramped everything up. And then the amount of gameplay options with a single weapon outside of bow guns is insane. Then you've got all the wire bugs and the crazy movement tech with that, maintaining weapon sharpness, managing stamina and health, riding palamutes, wyvern riding. All of these things I just named have butt fucking insane optimizations and subtle finessing that you only get through hundreds of hours of playing. There's also the hunt and hunt preparation mechanics that I love as well, capturing versus killing, the spirit bug and boosters that are spread around each map location that you can use to increase your stats, which have actual speed runs for the best routes to take. There's the subcamps and buddy recon points for each map. There's the other items and wildlife like the various toads that you can collect and use to paralyze or poison a monster, stink meeks, and whatever other weird shit that affects monsters. There's all the great wire bugs that you can use to move around each area and get to high places. All the consumables and items that add to the gameplay. Using flash bombs to bring a flying monster down or distract them long enough to heal. Using traps to lay down damage. Barrel bombs that you can use for big nummies when a monster is sleeping. There's all the energy drinks and powders and drugs and stat boosters, all the various healing methods, all of these things. Even before you hunt, you've got the preparation with the Buddy Plaza and the Argosy and the Dongo stations, hitting up the merchants and traders using the lottery, stocking up on items, customizing your loadout. Also, we haven't even talked about decorations and talisman, which are the ultimate in-game. I'd say besides a Borderlands game like BL2, Rise and Monster Hunter has the second best endgame of anything I've played. There's something so addicting about the RNG of getting a perfect talisman, getting that goddamn sexy 3-slot, 2-slot, 1-slot with the exact skills you need for a perfect build. Speaking of builds, holy fuck. Getting into the actual experience of the game of Rise and its monsters, I would say that rampages do suck ass and were only fun the first time you ever did one. The story is also kind of dog shit. Those things are short-lived because it's all about the hunt and gameplay anyways. Shout out every 4-player lobby session I've had. They were always random as hell. You never knew if you were going to get a level 1 hunter trying to mooch off your efforts or get some godlike 999 rank who would carry your quests. Shout out the entirety of Sunbreak's launch. One of my favorite periods of time, going through each week and month, getting new monsters and updates. Going through each master rank, the night that Abby and us did the Guys McGorm quest with the goated cutscene, and even more goated fight. Shout out the time that we tried the event quest Valstrax fight, way underleveled with 0 chance of winning, and it took honestly a full full lobby of legendary players who clutched up for us, and also took several hours of attempts to finally get some god run and make it happen. Shoutouts every Valstrax Dive Bomb, Teostra Nova Blast, Magnum Olive Vortex. Shout out my arch nemesis Rajang, the first time I ever discovered your bitch ass sleeping at the top of the mountain in Shrine Ruins. Thanks for sending me off the cliff, buddy. I'll never forget that. Shout out all the Narwa Mother event quests and the Devastating Pillars. Shout out Gormagala just because he and his gear look fucking sick. Shout out Almudron and all the hunts I had to do for your fucking orb. Shout out Kushala for all the times I dropped your skinny ass with a flash bomb. Shout out Somnicantha, you dirty little sausage, for all the times that you slept my ass and had me drowning in the water for 30 seconds. And then the final things that I want to say are, obviously, I am in love with this game. I love its gameplay and how every hunt feels like an immersive boss fight against an insane beast with a million attacks and satisfying interactions. Gunlance for life, Blast Dash for life, Bullet Barrage for life, and Dual Blades forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have my favorite game of all time, Elden Ring. Now, one thing to say right off rip is that opening, that theme song played throughout the game is one of the most goated pieces of music ever made. It makes me ready to run through a brick wall every single time I hear it. Now, Elden Ring is not only my favorite Souls game, it's my favorite game of all time. The first playthrough was not only my favorite gaming experience since 2022, but I think it's my favorite gaming experience I've ever had. I could look back at all of the competitive CODs and nostalgia of GameCube and Mario games and random one-offs growing up, but there was a certain magic captured in my first playthrough of Elden Ring. This game single-handedly changed the game in gaming. Before this playthrough, I was mainly just watching anime and getting into Monster Hunter in my free time. But ever since experiencing Elden Ring, I've dedicated so much of my life to Soulsborne and Souls-likes, almost like a masochistic addiction, which I am. Damn it! Can I survive the first 10 seconds of this fight? Damn it! Woman, can I survive? Please? We had zero fucking clue what I was getting into. I had watched early roundtable reviews where there was one guy hyping it up and talked about how he sat in his bathrobe all weekend long and never left his house playing this game on launch. And little did I know that I'd be sporting a robe myself on the couch playing on the big screen. I heard someone say this unironically about his first time on Elden Ring, and I 100% agree. It was magical. That's the only word for it. That Friday night when the game dropped, my life changed. I probably played Elden Ring that first weekend for 30 hours, opening the door to Limgrave, running behind the building immediately, only to get teleported by a random chest to Caelid, then getting violated by the giant Hellcrows and Caelid enemies for hours, finally finding my way back to Limgrave only to die to Beastman in that tiny cave for 2 hours because I didn't know how to lock on to enemies, getting stabbed out of my goddamn mind by the NPC who dropped the Reduvias, facing Margit for 4 hours from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. thinking that the game was literally impossible, exploring every nook and cranny in Stormvale Castle until 10 a.m. All of the fall damage, taking a nap on the couch until 1 p.m., waking up and grabbing some Lucky Charms, still in the robe, and then getting back on to mindlessly explore Weeping Peninsula. Raging at Erd 3 Avatar after struggling for 3 hours, but so addicted that I couldn't stop. This game was an out-of-body experience. I felt like I was a part of the world, and I was so immersed in a way that I'd never been in gaming before. And then that entire month was pure degeneracy. Playing every night,
all of the community memes, watching all the video guides and other creators playing it. The playthrough ultimately stopped after like 60 hours in when I couldn't defeat Millennia's bitch ass and I got burnt out, but I wouldn't take back a single second of it. Not even the literal 30-second death loading screens because the Xbox One was actual AIDS. I've played over 250 hours of Elden Ring, and it's easily more than double my playtime of any other Souls game. It is a true masterpiece and one of the greatest achievements in gaming. My first playthrough alone deserves the top spot and infinite praise for what it meant to me and its genuine life-changing experience. There are too many clips, too many playthroughs. I've done 7 or 8 playthroughs, randomizer, co-op, convergence, new game plus, dagger playthrough. I mean, how many of them do you want me to fucking list? And I can't pull enough iconic clips from them. I don't even want to shout them out. It'd take too long. All I can say is that some of my favorite memories in gaming over the last decade have been surrounded by this game. And I cannot wait for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC that's coming out in June. When that game drops, when that DLC expansion drops, my pants are going to drop. And I'm going to be grinding that for hours and hours. And I expect to struggle, and I'm going to do a challenge run where I die to a boss for 10 plus hours, and it's going to be better than Ludwig and anything else I've ever experienced in my fucking life. This game is goated. Everyone who plays it knows that. There is no debate for how great this game is. It is truly the best of a generation, the best of the last decade, the best of all time. It is going to be hard to top what this experience beholds, and I love it to death. It is my number 1 game of all time.